Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of PODCAD. This week we have three amazing guests representing Ontario Place for All. We'd like to welcome Lisa, Monica, and Francesca to the podcast. And today we're going to talk about Ontario Place for All and a recent project I've been working on called Artists Drawing Attention to Ontario Place. How are you guys doing today?
Terrific.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming on. I think it's a very important issue, and we'd love to discuss it today and get the information out there.
I just want to start off by going around the room and maybe looking back on fond memories of Ontario Place, or memories we do have about Ontario Place. Francesca, would you like to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start. I think I actually don't really have any memories of Ontario Place as many people who grew up in the city had. So I didn't know it when it was open, as it opened in the 70s. But I have lived nearby for almost a decade, and I started going there when it just opened to the public as is, which is kind of amazing. If you've been down there in the last few years, it's the kind of place you can't believe that the city just allowed people to walk around. But it's absolutely beautiful. It's this space that is a mix of places where you can be close to the water, places where you can be among trees, places where you can walk next to this amazing architecture. And it draws all kinds of people who are looking for either solace, or looking to meet with friends, looking to be close to wildlife, looking to swim, take photographs, etc. It just is a really special open public space. So that's how I started going there, because I live nearby and I wanted to have some green space.
Mm-hmm. And yourself, Monica?
I'm also not a native Ontarian, so I first discovered Ontario Place when Artspin did an event there back in 2017, I think it was. And I couldn't believe that this incredible place was so close to where I live in Parkdale. And then, of course, during the pandemic, it became an absolute lifesaver, because with social distancing, it was where I met friends to go for walks. And I have a dog, so there were many, many of us exercising our dogs down there. The range of paths and the different kinds of landscape that you can enjoy there are amazing. You see foxes and all kinds of birds too, so it was great. Yeah.
And Lisa?
I grew up for the most part in Toronto, and I remember going there when it was open, and it was really exciting as little kids. It was kind of an adventure. And then I went to the Cinesphere to see all kinds of amazing movies. But more recently, once it was closed down, I snuck in with a friend to take photographs, and we paddled over in a canoe, and then we hid the canoe in the bushes. This is with Kathleen. And snuck around avoiding the security guards, and it was fabulous, because it was like a little bit of wilderness in the middle of the city.
Right.
There were beautiful wildflowers and plants and animals and birds, and plus it was kind of, an adventure again. So we didn't get caught.
Oh, good.
And even more recently, during the pandemic, also went walking through there just to get some air and meet up with people and be outside without, having to worry about germs and all of that. And I was really shocked to hear what their plans are for this space. It seems, bad on so many levels.
Oh, yeah.
But I went, one last thing I remember about Ontario Place is that had a high school prom there. It was hilarious.
So cool.
We snuck around again and got lost. And anyway, it's a really special place.
Lots of sneaking around.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There may be more.
Lakin, yourself, would you like to?
So I've lived in Parkdale for 23 years now, very close to Ontario Place. So I have fond memories of going there, not only when it was sort of like a water park and theme park, because it was like right by my house, but I also, when it closed down in 2012, it kind of became like backyard, right? Like Parkdale is not a neighborhood that has a lot of green space that's accessible, and when there is green space, it's very small. So having Ontario Place was like this escape where you could just walk down and you're at the water, and like you guys were saying, like there's wilderness, and I've seen foxes there, I've seen one coyote, I've seen so many different birds and stuff. And so it kind of like, again, like in the pandemic, became this space where it was like a place to go and walk or bike or like just relax. And like, even just like having like it's one of the only spaces in the city where you can have like a permitted like fire with the permits and stuff, and that's such a special thing, especially for people who don't have the means to go out of the city to experience that. So the news of all this happening, like possibility of losing the space, has been extremely crazy and hard to even comprehend, knowing that like I've grown up beside it and watched it go through like 3 phases of life, and there has always been this looming threat to it. So it's sort of kind of like a do or die situation right now.
I think the moment that I gained consciousness as a child was at Ontario Place. So I think that was my
Right.
earliest memory. I don't remember the occasion. I remember I was a little toddler and remember seeing lights and the water glittering with the lights reflecting, and lots of people. And I just remember having a lot of fun. That was one of my earliest memories, and I knew it was at Ontario Place. But also just the bike rides you would take during the pandemic, going through there. It's always an adventure, right?
And sort of the same story. I can't remember getting consciousness at Ontario Place.
Maybe
but,
one of these days it'll hit you.
Grew up in Toronto. I've been here all my life and relatively close to Ontario Place. So, my dad would take me, and I guess being nostalgic, it was that really fun place, and even now is still a great place to explore and sneak around. Unfortunately, we do have to sneak around. I remember being in there and then hiding in a bush because like a horse came by, a man on a horse.
Okay.
It was a wild horse. Add to the list of wildlife.
Wow.
But I'm glad I never met the man on the horse. So, but it is, a place we need to cherish, because we have fond memories, but we also have opportunities to have more fond memories. And like you said, I've never lit a campfire there and been around my friends there. I've never gone to swim in the water, although I've been advised not to. But and I never got to, at least to my knowledge, never got to see a show in the, is it the Flog?
The Cinesphere?
The Cinesphere,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as the fence went up, it wasn't, all the good times, it was all the things I never got to do. So I guess that's why we're here, because, we see that a place that we really love and cherish is at stake. And I guess you guys can give us some background on what's going on and why it seems to be this way, why we're here, I guess.
I'll just talk a bit about how Ontario Place for All got started, because even though, we see that things have really escalated in the last year, the group's been around since 2019, and it formed kind of a necessity because they saw that privatization was probably on the cards for this site. So there's a group called Waterfront for All who are interested in all things making our waterfront a great place for everyone and advocating for the space. And Ontario Place came up. They've been looking at plans since it closed officially in 2012, they've been looking at plans for its future for a long time. And there seemed to be these rumblings that it was going to be sold. Part of it was maybe going to be sold or privatized. So this group formed to try and stop that from happening. And when the current provincial government put out the call for development, everything was on the table. So Trillium Park had just opened, beautiful space, was a parking lot. Now it's this amazing park. That was, okay, you can do something with that if you like. The Cinesphere was up for development. The pods, the whole site except Budweiser stage. So the group had their first campaign, and they asked people to help save some of these spaces, like Trillium and the architecture. And that was successful. The government said, okay, those places we can look at other ways to revitalize those spaces. And then they came out with their preferred design, and it just was going to obliterate the landscape.
Yeah.
So
Right.
over the last few years, as we've learned more about what the design actually entails, it will be a completely different site to what you see now, because it's going to be leased out to a private company to build something the size of BMO Field Stadium. So ever since then, since the first initial hearing about what was going to happen, the group has just been trying to keep people informed about the process, let them know about consultations that are coming up, let them know what kind of documents are coming up, who's involved in this, and where can you put pressure on people.
I can genuinely say that Ontario Place for All has been like the only clarity with stuff going on, because the government has refused to even release the plans. So like that's how I found out about all the information was happening, and I literally live beside it. Like it's a staggering thing to think about, that like there's no transparency on anything that's going on. It's just sort of happening, right?
Yeah.
If I had to distill this project, lack of transparency would be one of the main things I would say is the core part of this redevelopment. And that's wild. I live close to the site too. I wouldn't have even known what was going on. So I'm glad to hear that that's had some reach. That's good.
I think it's like even like the thing where like people didn't know that something was like looming or happening until the walls went up, right? Like it just kind of like was like overnight they fenced everything off, and they're like, all right, you can't go here anymore. And then that's when people were like, whoa, what the heck is going on?
Yeah. It's shocking. Yeah.
I think it's exactly because of Ontario Place for All that we got started too. There was a rally back in October, I think, where the son of the landscape designer, Adrian Hoff, who's the son of Michael Hoff, he happened to be in town, and so he was one of the speakers in Moose Hollow on the West Island. Were you there too?
I wasn't. No, I couldn't make it, unfortunately. But
it was
Me neither, but yeah.
amazing, and just listening to this guy talk about his dad walking him around the site when it was like rubble, right? It was all infill before the trees and plants had started to grow, and describing to his son what was going to happen, how all these native trees from different parts of Ontario were going to be there, and how certain trees would block the waves and shelter the beach for swimmers, and create water would be visible from every single part of the island, and that it would naturalize and not feel like a park, but feel like a wilderness once it was complete. And he's talking, and we're standing there in this place where this has happened, where the trees are now like 50 meters tall. I hadn't known any of this.
Yeah.
And then to hear that that was all going to be leveled, like the spa is supposed to be the footprint
of the whole
of
island. Yeah, the whole
island.
West Island.
It's terrifying.
I think it's also like the thing for me was always so cool, even when I was younger and still to this day, is like turning that corner on the lakeshore, and then there's just this wall of like evergreen trees and stuff. Like you don't genuinely see that density in a city, right? Like it's even like a thing, like I think for like when the planes, like the way that they take off there and stuff, you're getting this like introduction to this space that shouldn't exist in a city, and to just like have no consideration for that and just get rid of it is
to not value
preposterous
it.
to think about.
It shouldn't,
Except as a
but it
commodity.
should. Right. And to like think about the size of BMO Field, just completely wiping out all the wildlife and nature there. That, as you said, was not a natural. It was, Ontario Place was grown from the ground up, and to completely get rid of it because it's to say it's not valuable. What's, how can you place a value on a spa or the glass structure that they're trying to create over this, almost like it's a forest pretty much there. And to say it's not valuable, it's like saying that, to have a place that's free to go and just relax is not as valuable as having a place to go relax in like a
building.
Yeah, like
I am so glad to hear you guys say this, really, because I was kind of worried that maybe, the next generation couldn't care less about nature and would rather have a spa. And I'm thinking to myself, is it just me that really thinks this is precious? But obviously you guys think it's precious too. And
Believe me, like, we're all pissed off. It's just because we don't know what to do, right?
Yeah.
Like,
And it's you for the next 7 decades or 8 decades who would be able to take advantage of this beautiful space or not, and I think it was the piece that you sent me that mentioned that public spaces are good for the economy and good for the local people, but also that they are more beneficial in the long run. They serve a more diverse community and for a longer period of time. And I thought, wow, that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's kind of like you were saying, how can you put a value on that kind of thing? But for the people who that does evidently matter to, you could argue that the economics of having a free, public, like high quality, barrier-free space for people to just be, they don't have to pay to be anywhere, is so much more valuable for everyone than having somewhere that you have to, for a start, pay to access and also has taken over public land.
for 99 years.
For a century.
And we don't know the details because they won't tell us.
Yeah.
There's something very sketchy about that.
Well, and it's a public park, right?
Yeah.
The first and foremost, it's a public park. So I don't understand why a private company would be able to build in a public park. For me, that's very
I
confusing.
think it's even more staggering too. Like it's not even like a Canadian company, right? Like you have like internationally like allowing another company from somewhere else that's not even really contributing like 100% to the economy coming in and just saying, okay, yeah, we're going to build here, but you also have to do all this stuff to prepare it for us. And it's like, why is the general public paying to privatize space? It makes
Exactly.
no sense.
It's so
And
ironic,
to
too.
destroy what's also a cultural and
Right.
heritage
Yes,
site, right?
exactly what I was about to
yeah,
say, yes.
it is really our central park. Michael Hoff is the foremost landscape architect in Ontario, if not Canada, and this is like an amazing example of his working. You don't have to know that to like love Ontario Place, but it's not just any space.
I think Cinesphere too, that's the first like permanent IMAX in the world, and that's from Ontario, which is super cool. And we're going to lose that too because it's being wrapped into whatever the Science Centre plans are, which is a whole other aspect to this.
And there's a
terrible
huge colony of swallows that make that space home.
That's right, yeah.
It's taken years for them to build all of their little nests, and that's all going to be gone. I think it's just going to be devastated.
Yeah, the Cinesphere is, the building is staying, but the whole, but we're losing a really amazing theater.
Yeah.
And because of extremely short-sighted and plan to move the Science Centre down.
I think it's like another thing too recently with phase 2, which was just like come to light recently as well. Is like I think part of what made the Cinesphere so amazing is that it's surrounded by water, right?
Yeah.
And now with this new phase, they're trying to infill that whole section of the lake. So now it's like what makes it then identifiable and special.
Fill a
Yeah.
lake
No,
Yeah.
like
for a parking lot.
And
Yeah.
yet on the hoarding, they have wetlands and
Yeah.
forest, and it's just so completely false and unnecessary. The idea of wellness being indoors with potted palm trees and chlorinated water, I find that offensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you brought up this phase 2 plan that we saw this week, and I find it, again, it just sort of represents this whole project. Why are we finding out about these plans through Freedom of Information requests? Because we were all at public consultations, invited to share feedback, but in the background, obviously, there was this document we didn't know about, and now we're learning about it 2 years later. So it's why is that how you're communicating with the public? Because they have had to search for documents.
Yeah, it's almost like it's not a openness. It's more like a try and hide it, and if we get caught, then go, oh, sorry, yeah, we messed up. But I don't know how much longer like you can do that until it just becomes like blatantly obvious to everyone that you're like, there's a ruse going on. You're not saying what you're doing. Like it's
And
It's
if
crazy.
they start cutting trees down, the trees are going to not be able to grow back. This is the emergency part of it, in my viewpoint anyway, that once they start site preparation, as they call it, the trees could be removed, and then regrowing that forest takes many, many years, longer than we've
50
got.
years.
Yeah.
It takes at least 50 years.
Well, and as
Won't
you
be
pointed
grow-
out,
old
like
growth
in
either.
Parkdale in particular has very little parkland.
Yeah.
Ironically.
Irony, yeah.
But it also serves as kind of cottage country for a lot of people who don't have
Absolutely.
cottages, no matter
Yeah.
where in the city they are.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the trees, you know, regardless of whether you can make it to Ontario Place or not, those trees are working overtime to clean the air for us all the time. There are a lot of highways there, the Lakeshore, the Gardner. So those trees are actually working hard for free for the benefit of everyone and for the wildlife and birds that they host too.
It's just like, I mean, like following on that point too, like I remember when Trillium Park, which was an amazing addition and project and stuff, first opened, there was all this information about how they consulted with like indigenous groups and stuff to make it so it was all native species, and they curated the trees specifically so that it was all like natural and perfect and stuff. And there was this sort of like thought that like, okay, maybe they're going to do the right thing and they're going to extend this. They're going to extend this through the whole area and stuff, and then all of a sudden to say like, well, actually we did this for you guys, so let's go privatize the rest, is just sort of like this slap in the face that's like impossible to remedy. And it's not like a situation where like this starts and then it gets like, you know, blocked by the courts or something and stuff. Once it starts, like the damage is done. It's not like oh yeah, no, we messed up. Like it's done. Like there's no way to like reset and go back.
Yeah.
Because wasn't it Walter Kim who did
Yeah,
Trillium, and he stepped away?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the landscape architect at Trillium Park, as you may have read, stepped away not just from the project but from his own firm over their continued involvement with the rest of the site, because he, I think, understood what the real plans were and couldn't bear to see the landscape being cut down. And like you said about Trillium, I think about spaces downtown where I see, I guess, like indigenous ecologies. And, you know, there they have this plant identifier. You can go around. Every plant is recognized in English, but also in Anishinaabe, and you can look up what the traditional uses are. Or it's amazing. And it's so present in the landscape as it should be. And it's, as you said, it's so sad that there's an amazing plan there for what we could see at the waterfront, but that's just cut off.
Yeah.
You're going to leave Trillium Park and you're going to be faced with a giant glass building. Yeah.
So I guess we know, or we should know better, their plans, the government's plans. But what are some of the plans that Ontario Place for All has in store for us, I guess?
Well, I think want to be cognizant that, you know, we obviously have lots of ideas what we'd like to see there,
Right.
but it's meant to be open for everyone to have to be consulted about. So ideally we would like the current process is to be stopped and to start with public input.
Right.
But we were receiving a lot of questions, well, what do you want to see at the site? So we did present a concept called A Better Idea, but it's meant to be just a sort of conversation starter about what could be at the site. Here's a vision that we could start with, and it's about Ontario Place down at the waterfront, the Science Centre, up at Don Mills. You know, the Ontario line is about to be built between those two spaces. There's an Ontario Science Centre stop, which is named. What if we leverage both of those public assets and keep public at the core of both of those spaces? So naturalized areas, yeah, I think there's totally space in the future for, you know, some other kind of businesses or entertainment or something around the spaces, but I think the core of it needs to be for the public,
Right,
and,
for sure.
and as barrier free as possible for everyone.
There has to see a revision, you know, because even though it's fun to explore the log sort of ride, there could be something even better for everyone for free at
Yeah.
Ontario Place.
Yeah.
Mark, what would you want at Ontario Place?
I don't know. Maybe a Shakespearean play
Ooh.
going on in the forest.
Well, that's a
Yeah.
great
Something
idea.
something
Yeah.
whimsical.
Yeah.
But see, the thing with like having like a space open like that is there's just like endless possibilities for like events that could happen,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
opposed to
And
if
flexibility,
it's
too.
exact
Yeah.
flexibility, right? And that's a great way to just build up culture in the city. You know, a lot of people complain that there's like not. Or the city's just getting rid of those assets, and why keep doing that when we have the opportunity to make more things happen
Yeah.
and have that flexibility, right?
Yeah.
And it's not a radical idea either. I think a lot of big cities around the world, it's happening as we speak. They value their waterfront. They make it something public, and also a place where people who visit the city will want to go. And it enhances not just the experience of the local people, but all the people visiting from the rest of the province and the rest of the country and the world. So I don't think that what we're looking for is anything weird or unusual. I would like to see, I've just been doing a little bit of traveling, and some of the places I've gone to, the water is, swimmable year round, and there's a little place to change your clothes and maybe have a shower and rinse off, and somewhere warm, a bathroom. It's so that the swimmers would have the facilities, because people swim there all year round. They've just had to move their swimming to another location because it's now shut down. But they're very active. There's a large group of people who are really into cold water swimming and open water swimming. It's beautiful. And the water is really clean on that side of the island. Where they propose to put the beach is right by a sewer outlet. So, the writing's on the wall. They don't care.
On
And,
infield land, like it's not even like it. There, it's. I think it's a crazy thing to try to convince people that like we need all the land that's already there, so we're going to build more public land by filling in the lake, which is just. I mean,
greedy.
I don't understand. Like, I don't get how you can get away with something like that. And I think it also like it comes back to like, we love to say as a city, like our like motto is that we're like a city within a park, and then you're gonna go and obliterate the thing that makes
That's a really good point.
that
Yeah.
possible,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
Like to go back to your point of like this connectivity between like the Ontario Science Centre and Ontario Place, there's amazing opportunities that you have that it is literally a connection from like a natural river and stuff down to the lake. Like you're literally following that
Yeah.
path. So it's a strange thing to think
there's-
about.
There's also, I think it was Walter Kame too, who was talking about Boston's Emerald Necklace, which is an interconnected set of green spaces of parks, and that's what his vision was for the waterfront. That Trillium Park would then lead through to the West Island and Humber, and so that you could cycle the entire waterfront, the entire urban waterfront through parkland. And I mean, that seems like a fantastic idea.
And I think that was like, I remember when the Pan Am Games were happening in 2015, there was initial plans to do that, like down through the Leslie Spit and then across the lake and then up. And obviously, like there's all the development going on at Cherry Beach and sort of down in there now too. And they're opening up all that ecological space there and stuff. But I think it's a preposterous thing to just say like, oh yeah, we're putting green space here, so don't worry about it there, when it is sort of like it's an ecosystem, right? Like it is interconnected
Exactly.
and laced into itself. Like it is a migratory path. And I don't know, we're at a point right now where we're sitting on this like amazing piece of public land that is vital to not only like the humans living in the city, but all the ecology too. So it's weird. It's
Yeah.
really weird.
I remember being down there one evening, and there was a group of architecture students, I think looking at the pods, the Cinesphere, and then everyone was suddenly just not listening to the person who was talking to them because there was a beaver, and it was like it was walking really close to us, like just here, because there's a nice they're there every year, they flourish there, and that was suddenly the most important thing, and it made me think. I walk there a lot. I'm kind of used to seeing them, but it is so special that you can go somewhere and see something I don't know, these amazing animals that have such a special place in our landscape. And that's right downtown. And that, for many people, they've never seen one before. That is so cool. It was like, we're in an urban setting. We have a beaver there. There's a mink running along the shoreline behind us. There's a fox over there. There's hundreds, like thousands of swallows above us in summer. I mean, as you mentioned, the cliff swallows, that's one of the biggest groups of cliff swallows, maybe, definitely in the GTA, maybe in all of Ontario. It's spectacular. And it's such a small ecosystem, but it obviously supports an incredible amount of wildlife.
Thriving, yeah.
And imagine telling someone, if you get off like Union Station, 20 minutes, you can be in that kind of environment. So those creating those connections closer to nature, what an opportunity right there. And
I think that goes back to a point that was made earlier too, with like, they want to basically remove the Ontario Science Center from where it is now, which is already in like an amazing like ecological space too, and it's a beautiful building. Like it's like one of the last pieces of like brutalist architecture in the city that is just like, you walk in there and you're like, holy shit, down the hill.
Eco-brutalist.
Yeah.
I'm like, for me, I'm not opposed to building a science center down in the space and the pods and stuff, but I'm opposed to the fact that to do so you have to remove the space that's already existing. Like, I don't see why there's not enough thought to be like, why don't we invest in another space to extend that? You're literally building transit that you can get up there in 20-25 minutes. What is the amazing possibilities to be like, okay, you're up here, but if you want to go experience like science with the water, which is there, you're in another space in 20 minutes. And it's just crazy, like, to like retrofit those buildings and, put a science center in there too, like an extension of that. That would be humongous for the economy. Like, that's crazy big, because what other cities are doing that? What other cities have the space to say like, yes, we've got multiple facilities dedicated to educating people on science, right?
I mean, like in the theater there on Ontario Place, I remember like watching so many interesting documentaries on nature. That was one of my first like 3D movie experiences. No glasses needed either. It was just like amazing. I just remember. I remember just like walking up to get in there and just like, oh my God, everywhere you look, it's just really beautiful. And like with the science center, one of my fondest memories was going there as a kid. And for some reason, just like in the parking lot, there was a ton of caterpillars just everywhere. And I thought that was fantastic. Just like seeing like the beaver, right? You just kind of stop and you're just like, whoa.
Totally. It's one of those moments.
I think a lot of young people need those moments, like you mentioned that you were surprised that like people of our generation have interest in these types of things. It's because we're so glued to technology that we want something different. We want access to spaces where we can have these moments where we feel connected with the land, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And especially, why we saw so many people go out there during the pandemic.
Yeah.
It was too much screen time.
Just longing for open space above you and water, and it does something that you don't have to pay money for. It does something really amazing to lift your mood and make you feel kind of at peace. And it's a beautiful place to draw and paint. So that was one of the things that we, Monica brought the outdoor painting group, and we had the paint in, which was awesome. And we also had fire pits, and a few people came to the fire pit, and I don't think, it was a whole brand new experience. Like, you put wood in and you burn it and you roast marshmallows, and it was kind of quaint and a little bit goofy, but the process of just kind of activating and bringing people to the place and just letting them know that all of this could be gone, that was the beginnings for me. And then when the hoardings went up, I think you were there right at the beginning drawing animals and bird species.
It was on New Year's Day.
That's so amazing. I missed that one.
On New Year's Eve, we'd met Margie down at one of the fire pits.
Right.
And walked around the island like late at night on New Year's Eve. And then the next day she said, okay, let's meet. We have to like draw something on that little bit of black hoarding there. So So we did, and I printed off a few images of some of the animals that from your lists I knew were there. And there was something about just like drawing the animals and birds that suddenly felt right. Like,
Yeah.
let's do this again in a couple weeks. And I think you decided to call it a chalk rally.
Yeah, just a
yeah.
way, you know, so you have probably seen the construction hoarding all along Lakeshore, and for a while it was the world's longest blackboard. Why would you, what an opportunity.
Oh yeah,
So-
light bulb went on.
Yeah, I can't believe no one's drawn on that yet. So, yeah, it was
And
a
not
great-
being given to vandalism, we just thought, let's get chalk. We're teachers too, teachers and artists, so like chalk. And then it was actually kind of funny when they would like wipe it off.
Wipe it off, yeah.
Within a day or so. I don't know if you know that little animated film from 1969 or something, Bambi Meets Godzilla.
Don't know.
You'll have to watch it because that was the spirit of it. We're Bambi drawing our little animals and birds, and little kids are coming to draw with us, and passersby, and then, you know,
get crushed.
slammed.
But we're back again.
Exactly.
I think that's like what illustrates how preposterous it is, because if you're so frightened about your plan being derailed by chalk on a piece of hoarding that you have to wash it off the next morning, there's clearly something that you don't want people to know about that's happening behind
Right.
closed doors.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'd understand if it was getting like tagged up and it was like clear just vandalism, but like the second that you step into people being like, hey, this is what's happening, and you have to remove it like immediately, full stop.
Yeah.
It's a problem, especially when you put like advertising up that is the same thing that's been drawn,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Well, what our focus was really the animals and the birds, and we made sure to like label every species that we put up to, so that there was kind of an educational component almost, or like, hey, like,
Right.
I didn't know that pumpkin fish were around Ontario Place. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And also to make it positive and make it creative and energetic and fun and kind of like a community of resistance. So, you know, we were obviously outnumbered and outgunned and outmoneyed and out everything, but we're just going to keep on doing it. And, you know, if they keep on erasing our chalk drawings, we'll make more. And more people are joining in too, which is a really encouraging and optimistic moment. It's not over till it's over. And we're really, you know, we're going to stubbornly keep doing whatever we can, even though it's kind of not the right weather for it today.
I think it's great because there's so many things that we are encouraging folks to do online and to people to reach out to. But if you just need that cathartic moment to share your, well, not share your anger, share what you're going to lose, share your, you know, memories, thoughts, whatever. That's a really great opportunity to do that, and meet lots of other people who feel like who understand what a loss that space will be. So I think
And the
it's
notices will always be up on Ontario Place for All, right? So if people
well
are wondering,
documented,
like,
yes,
yeah.
well documented.
And then any actions that we have planned, we'll let people know about them so they can join in.
Yeah.
I guess that is like a greatest segue. Like, what is some things that, like, you know, other people our age or even any age can do to get involved or, like, you know, help out with this amazing mission of preserving such a vital space?
First, I think you're art students too, right?
Yes.
And that kind of creativity can go a long way. I mean, I didn't expect to be doing this 6 months ago at all. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm drawing on like hoarding now, and I can draw a bird in 15 minutes that's 6 feet tall now.
Which is way
Which
too
is
much
really
fun, actually.
Yes. But for me, it became really, you know, wanting to do something in community that felt positive, because just like writing letters is not that much fun for me.
Yeah.
So if you can think of something that's fun and that is appealing, get a few people together, who knows? It could take off. And these folks at Ontario Place for All are great at getting the word out.
Yes,
So-
we'll amplify any actions going on. This weekend I'm going to Winona Lodge. There's a duo who recorded an album on the West Island when it was open, and they're going to be performing that live. Just another great response to what's going on. That's how they felt they wanted to express it. And at Ontario Place for All website, you can take action by, the biggest thing is putting pressure on MPPs, the province.
Yeah.
That is ultimately who's going to make this decision. So there's pre-written letters you can sign to the Premier, to MPPs, to the Minister of Infrastructure. All those letters go to their inboxes. The more they can see, the more they see that people don't like this plan. And then we also have a boycott the spa company, who seem convinced that this is something we've all been asking for and we all have embraced their plan. So we have a letter to their CEO you can sign, let them know how people feel. But yeah, it's easier to have I think a letter pre-written, so it's quick to sign, quick to share, something like that. Yeah.
It's funny, like when you mention like the spa, because whenever I need like a good chuckle, I just go into their comment section and just read all their like tone-deaf responses, and I'm like who the fuck do you guys think you are? Like, you're not.
And there's
fooling
more
anyone.
and more of them now. There was
Yes.
like a dozen of us just firing away, and now there's 150 or 200. It's great. It's building.
But pressure works. I mean,
Right.
we were asking TIFF to reconsider their involvement, and they've put a pause on that relationship with Thermo, the company. So the more people that speak out, there is an impact.
Right.
It does work. And I think with this provincial government, over the last 2 years, we've never seen so many rollbacks of things that they said they would do.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
it can still happen.
I feel the hope. Like when I saw the green belt
Yeah, massive.
Yeah.
plans fall through, I was like, it was like really big, because it's almost that things are leading up to a happy ending, which I'm hoping for.
The good ending.
Yes, the good ending of Toronto.
Well, that came about because the corruption was revealed, and I'm hoping that the corruption that seems to be behind what's happening at our Ontario Place is also going to be revealed. I hope someone has, a really good private detective on their case and finding out, what happened behind the scenes and why they are being so secretive. Because usually if someone is that secretive and overrides all the environmental and heritage laws, something is going on behind the scenes. We need to know what it is. And if it comes to light, then maybe what happened with the Greenbelt can happen with Ontario Place.
I think it's like the corruption, it runs deep, and it's especially like evident when you need to change the minister who's in charge of the space from being the one that's in charge of tourism, entertainment, and so forth, which Ontario Place is, it's a park, and change it over to infrastructure. What does that say about the plan? Are you treating it as a space for people and tourists and stuff, or is it a space for industry? Because that gets very muddied and quickly lost when you transfer power like that without any hindsight and transparency, especially when the person you're taking the power away from is going, hey, like, what is going on here, guys?
And it's the benefit of the few rather than for all of us. So it's for-profit government, for-profit politics, and it should be for the benefit of the public and the people who are using a space, or in the future as well. Instead of benefiting future generations, this seems like really short-sighted.
I do like your positivity. I do think there is hope here. And there's an active Auditor General investigation just into Ontario Place. There's 2 active legal challenges right now. I mean, it's kind of unbelievable that those have come about through community groups who have had to mobilize to find out what's happening and challenge their own government, but that's where we're at. So I have my fingers crossed for an Auditor General report soon. And I think there are reasons to feel more people are learning about this, more people are speaking out. Amazing initiatives like going to down to the hoarding and sharing art and trying to bring in as many people as possible. There's a lot going on, and I do feel some hope too.
Even just before we sat down, we were dreaming up new,
Yeah.
we were scheming. I don't know
Yeah.
if you heard us, like, oh, maybe we could draw there. Or like, what about a photo campaign? If you have photos of things that you've enjoyed doing with friends at Ontario Place, because I've heard that some people in charge think that it's only weeds, or that nobody goes there.
Yeah.
And perhaps we can give them photo evidence that it is well used and well beloved.
For me, like, I mean, I've sat there and I've, like, when the West Bridge used to be open and stuff, I used to sit there and count how many people would go in like 15 minutes, because I'd go on like photo walks and stuff with my partner. And that's like sort of just, we'd stop there and sit and be like, how is it not evident that people aren't using this space? There's like pretty much only one way to get in. So like, you know that everyone going across this bridge is using the island. And of course no one's going to use the space when you close access to it, right? Like, you can't say like, look guys, no one's using this space, it's empty, when there's nowhere to get into it, right? Like,
And that's kind of it. Like, look at the space as it is now. I think we can all see that it needs some form of revitalization. Bring in more people to experience all those kind of like magic moments we've had. But look how it's used just as is. People are drawn to that space and they're so creative in the ways they use it. I remember on the West Island once, I was out bird watching, because that's what I'm normally there doing, and there were people doing, I just came across 2 people doing like flamenco dancing. What is going on? And it was just one of those moments where people activate those spaces because they're there. And I think we can appreciate that. Obviously it is used, obviously people go there, it's not empty, but we could build on that even more. The space is there, we just need to.
I think even as it exists now too, like they've done like music festivals there and stuff, and they've done like outdoor like food markets and art markets and stuff. And I mean, like, it's not to say that like right now there is parts that could be fixed, but it's in an amazing spot to just like invest that small little bit of money and just, you know, instead of like taking a whole huge chunk of taxpayer money and saying like, let's build 100% brand new, invest in what's already there. Like build a space that works for everybody. And I think it's like the same thing with like, obviously there is already private industry there. Like you have Budweiser stage and you have all this stuff, and that's inevitable. Like it started out as a sort of, you know, public private space when it was a theme park. So it's not to say that there can't be that there, but I think it's about how do we manage access to the space as well around that. And there is a beauty, like there's always been live music venues at Ontario Place. The original one, I forget the name of it, but it closed down and then they built what is now Budweiser Stage. And that's not to say like, Budweiser Stage is in a space where it needs to be repaired, but that doesn't mean that you need to encroach on further land, right? Like,
and there was a marina full of boats too, and a lot of people used it, and they were, I spoke with a couple of them during one of our first events, and they were really upset because it was shut down really quickly and they all had to find another place to moor. And it's just a really great thing to have in a waterfront is people coming to visit the city from the lake.
And if you just consider like what happened during the years when it was completely shut down to the public and nature took over, and the incredible gift that kind of naturalization has given to us, it's like, you can't buy that. So why don't we accept that gift and build on it and just make it, you know, a little bit more accessible, a little bit more safe in some areas, whatever, but you don't need to destroy the stuff that the birds and the animals and the trees and all that need. That's a gift that actually that Michael Hoff bequeathed to us with his amazing design. And so
I think about like the bald eagle story that happened recently. We have these nesting bald eagles in the city, which is really exciting.
That's amazing.
That has been so long. But for that feel-good story, on the other hand, we're about to destroy migratory habitat. So it's great to celebrate that the city can, accommodate bald eagles now to nest. So what an opportunity to build, I think, on that. But instead we're seeing...
not build a glass spa that, you know, is really good for migrating birds.
Massage the eagles.
They're not going to be using it,
No.
I think like the biggest glaring thing for me too, and it goes back to like Parkdale historically and stuff, like this space that it sits like bordering and stuff, is like for, you know, over 100 years now. That space, it has transitioned. It's gone through influxes and stuff, and it's changed its like, you know, fabric and makeup as a community. But it always seems to get the short end of the stick every single time. Like when the Gardner needed to be built, just level it,
Yeah.
build the Gardner. When they needed to build, like, you know, the stuff in exhibition, like BMO Field and all the other stuff that they built in there, yeah, it gets, you know, it's just, it gets chopped up more and more. And you'd think by now there'd be enough, like, hindsight to be like, hey, this is going to happen again. And, you know, there's just, what do you do about that? Like, it's
Well, this is really valuable, and what you guys can do if you're into it is just, first of all, raise awareness and let people know that it is something totally magical and has been worked on not just at random, but by a lot of people who made it incredibly beautiful, and then make sure that your voices are heard, not even just necessarily in the GTA, but beyond the GTA as well. People have been saying, oh, it's Ontario Place, it's not Toronto Place. Well, does the rest of the province of Ontario really want this spa? I don't know. I don't think so.
Right.
I haven't heard a single positive word from anybody. But
I think also that they'll be paying for it. Like the amount of public money going into this is just so obscene, to be propping up this company and this development, for which we don't know the full details. That also gets me. We're giving the land over for 100 years. We don't know the details, but we're all expected to pay $500 million to support it. And that is going to be everyone in Ontario.
yeah.
So that's a problem.
don't worry, because there'll be underwater parking, so we're good.
Oh, yeah.
You can accommodate all the cars.
Yeah,
And you
there's-
got to pay to enter.
Yeah.
Like, it's just
And traffic's not bad at all right now.
oh no, it's great. I can get across Toronto in 10 minutes. Said nobody ever.
No.
I think,
Yeah.
like, especially, like, you know, I mean, the other thing too, and it goes back to like the Ontario line. There was this plan to invest in public transport and stuff, and then you're still like, yeah, but let's make the means for like hundreds more cars to just spill into the
Yeah.
Yeah.
downtown, like just outside the downtown.
It shows
core.
such a lack of vision for what's really happening in the world, which is that our natural environment is shrinking, and it's becoming more and more difficult to, just get oxygen in the air, basically. We need green spaces in a city, and we also need long-term planning that acknowledges climate change and starts to respond in a more proactive way, like not more cars. So
Not more parking
E-bikes.
lots,
No.
more transit,
more
and
natural
more
space.
nature.
Stop
Yeah.
being nature phobic.
Yeah, I think like what I was gonna say, like the final thing is like it's a shocking thing to think that like green space, which has always been public, has become enemy number one, and it's like used as a target to be like, since it's only trees and plants growing, there's nothing there. When it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like go outside and experience it.
Touch
and maybe you'll
grass.
see. Literally, like touch
Yes.
grass, stop.
Yes.
Get grounded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why don't we go through some of the photos that we've sent over? We can
Oh,
see
yeah.
them here.
I
Yeah.
think that was from the first paint-in.
Yep, that was
Yeah.
the paint
Yeah.
in October.
Yeah.
The beginning.
It's up by the old log ride.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
remember.
Moose House.
inviting everyone to be in the space and respond to the space. During a really nice afternoon.
There were about 65 people who came out. Amateurs, professionals, oil, paint, everything. Oh, that was the
That was our
critical
first,
meeting.
our plotting of the paint-in. This is when we started postering along the hoardings.
Yeah.
I
Before it
remember
was
seeing
black.
those posters.
Yeah.
And
That beautiful beach.
Yeah,
yes,
Pebble Beach.
which would
We
be
built
completely
a-
destroyed.
a pebble house.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
But then we got evicted.
Yeah, we came back a week later and there was a huge
Development.
fence. And we're like,
Oh.
And that was one of the Sundays in the park.
Oh.
So, because we would rent the fire pit and gather around, and the people going out to swim in the freezing cold water. This was every Sunday in November. We were
That is
gathering,
such a
and
beautiful spot, right?
It ranged
there.
from, I don't know,
And like
maybe
the-
20 to 40 people
So
who would be
cool.
out.
The light rays.
I
are
know,
just like a
stunning, right?
straight Group of
Sunsets.
seven.
Yeah.
We had a
Wow.
jam session
It looks
too.
exactly.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
we're trying to get musicians more involved. So if any of you are musicians,
Alex,
wink nudge.
play some Beatles.
Yeah. We want people to go there, not.
Oh
Scare them away.
Whoa.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Wow.
nice.
Yeah.
But like that spot, just to look out to the lake, I feel like the city has spent decades cutting itself off from the water, but we're on a great lake, and let's kind of celebrate that. And that spot, you can just look out onto the water. Right behind you, there's a whole row of trees. I mean, it's really special. Big sky, big water.
I can see why people jump in the water now.
Yeah,
It's pretty clean.
Close
I've been
pretty
swimming
late.
there
The
for
water's right.
many years.
yeah,
it's
it
great.
is clean. It is clean. Yeah.
And literally every night that I'd be there, people would be watching the sunset.
Yeah.
Like, no matter the weather. it
That's my
seems.
tree that I dedicated
Yeah.
to my grandfather, Opa. And that's on their list of trees that will be cut down. And every time I look
That
at
would
it,
be
I want to
inside the
chain
spa.
myself to it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Are there any plans of like a major demonstration like that and stuff if it does get to that point for like, immediate action?
Yeah, so at the moment, the site is closed, obviously, but you can still see the West Island from
Yeah.
from the mainland. So we are keeping an eye on the site pretty much every day, trying to stay vigilant, watching out for any construction vehicles or anything. And we've set up a text option. So if we see anything happening and you've signed up, we'll text everyone and say, okay, it's action time. Please,
Yeah.
everyone get down here and let's try and stop this on the ground. So that is at Ontario Place for All website, and you can sign up and add your phone number. And if we see it happening, we'll let you know.
Cool.
Yes.
A happy lad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's come up to a lot of things.
He's
Is it
been,
John?
yeah, that's John.
He's
He's been,
a real enthusiastic person.
yeah.
And, more festivities.
That was a particularly cold night.
Yeah, it got colder and colder, obviously. More layers of clothes. But the fire pit's really terrific.
Right, that's what to say.
yeah.
Oh, yes, this was with Walter after his tour.
After the tour, yeah.
Yeah.
And we dedicated a tree to him as well.
Mhm.
That's Save the Trees, I think it's called, or Save the Forest. There's a
Save the
website where
Trees.
Yeah, save the trees at op.com. All the trees they're all documented there, beautiful photos, and people have taken images next to the trees with people they care about or dedicate to. Yeah.
Another happy lad.
Yeah.
No, it's the same.
Same guy.
yeah.
It's positivity.
Yes.
Yes. Positive
I think
action.
that was from that first rally.
Yeah.
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 And wow.
And
a lot
this
of people-
is the Walter came
This is the top.
Tour, yeah.
tour.
That was really inspiring. That was
Mhm.
like a radicalization moment for me, actually. Yeah, he was great. And he mentioned the necklace of parks that would just go around the whole
Yeah, the
waterfront.
emerald
Yeah.
necklace.
This was the first few things that we drew on the hoarding. We only had white chalk at the time.
Right.
There is a hole right in the middle of the eyeball where it says, "We can see you." I drilled it, and then I got chased away by bike cops.
So what's the location of the wall if OCAD students, maybe or students listening, creative folk want to
There's
check
not
it
much
out?
left.
So the
Yeah.
wall extends all along Martin Goodman Trail from Trillium Park to the other side of where West Island is at Ontario Place. It's almost a kilometre long along the lakeshore. But yeah, right along Lakeshore Boulevard, that biking path. It's now been covered up with vinyl installed by the province with beautiful images of forests and totally unrelated to what is being built there. But that's where it is, along Lakeshore.
So there's very little, like I think there's like 12 feet of
Yeah.
black space left for chalk. Which
I'm
is-
sure they'll cover that up pretty quickly.
Exactly.
It's a good thing that black paint's not too expensive. I mean,
Oh, do I hear plans?
no.
No, okay.
That's Bill Burns, who organized a sign painting event, and then the signs were all brought down to Lakeshore Boulevard, and we had another rally.
Yeah, the sheer amount of public money going into this project. Imagine what we could spend that on.
Yeah.
Right.
So we have a binder full of reference materials that came from Francesca and Margie, right?
Margie, yeah.
Yeah.
So even if people didn't really know what the animals look like specifically, they could look through the binder and get a reference image and then draw it enormously large.
And she'd separated out into like species at risk and species that nest here, so that
Yeah.
we would then make the, put little word bubbles, speech bubbles by the various birds.
Yeah.
They're really beautiful drawings too. Like every time I've gone past it, I'm just like stunned when the new ones come because it's like, wow.
Oh,
Like,
That's the Simpsons
the
moment.
Simpsons.
Yeah.
It's like Banksy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's loads of bats there.
Mhm.
There are tons of bats.
Yeah, that's true.
Just things you don't get to realize or experience for yourself, at least in my experience, like how much wildlife is there.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
I remember when I first saw a mink running along the shoreline, I was just blown away. It's such a cool looking animal.
I saw a whole family of mink there. There was like 3 babies and the mother, and they were just like running, and then she like found like half of a fish, and then they were all sitting there eating it. I was like, it's so cool. It was
Amazing.
like the best thing ever.
Yeah.
I love that heron.
Me too.
It's so great. Yeah, one week we focused on poetry too.
We had some poetry and
Yeah.
so
There you go.
and
Right.
yeah, some people who were running by or walking by or biking by who stopped and told us that they were really upset by what was happening and that they were excited about joining in. And there was one woman who had just moved to Toronto and was like really shocked that we would be getting rid of part of our waterfront. It was an interesting dialogue. I think that was kind of the grassroots part of it, is whoever came along would just be included. And yeah.
Exactly. And there's something just really nice about being like with friends, and then the friendship circle expanded every time that we did it too. And regardless of what happened, that was totally worth it. So, and I encourage you guys to get your friends to do stuff, or like through
Yeah.
this podcast, encourage OCAD students to like figure something out and do it, because it's fun. It's actually really fun.
Yes.
I think
And it
it's
makes
very-
you feel less helpless too.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
it's
a
like
huge
gently
part of it.
radical.
Yeah.
super vital too. I think it's like our generation like always likes to talk about like, oh, I wish there was like more I could do, like, we're not in like a protest generation and stuff. It's like, why can't we be the generation that steps up
Yeah.
and says like, this is not cool.
You don't need permission. Just go out there and
Yeah.
make some
And
noise.
make protests look different. It doesn't have to be people walking with signs. Like, there are other ways to draw attention to things. And
for sure.
It's been very heartwarming to hear all of this. And
Likewise.
the way we like to wrap up our show here is first, I should say, actually, please, everyone that's listening, check out Ontario Place for All on Instagram. Is there a website set up?
Yeah,
Yes.
so there's a website, and then very active on Instagram, X, and Facebook.
Right. And we have a little something for the fine people at Ontario Place for All. Please.
Oh, wow. I thought this drawing was very beautiful.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Is it better than that?
So, on behalf of all of us here at PODCAD, we hope to keep the process going on.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing.
Excellent.
That's great because I'm running low.
We got more supplies.
Oh, fantastic.
And we hope
Nice
to join you guys, and I hope everyone listening
Awesome.
to find a way to do your part and join us.
Yeah.
So
Get involved, speak out. Like was said, contact your MPPs, sign the letters, push back, and we're gonna fight this. And
Yes.
Yes.
be on the right side of history.
Yes, thank you. I'm
Yeah.
feeling
Thank
more
you.
hopeful even after that.
Cause-
last
Yeah,
story.
Totally.
Because like I'm telling you guys, now is your moment,
Crunch
and
time.
a decade from now, you're gonna look back and be like, shit, I can't afford a spa, but I could have used a public park.
Yeah.
So please, I encourage you.
Everybody in Toronto and Ontario must see a beaver.
yes.
Yes,
That's the initiative.
that's it.
And not at a zoo.
Not in a zoo. Yeah, but
Alright.
thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
It's
Thank
been a
you so
pleasure.
much.
And
Thank you.
thank you for watching. Take care, everyone.
See you all next time.
See you next week.
And that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Amazing, guys. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You guys are great.
Yeah.
Yeah.